Well, 4 months on since the war, what is the current situation in Georgia?
Current situation in terms of the security situation is very fragile indeed. What we have established on the ground is a very partial implementation of the ceasefire agreement. Russia had withdrawn its forces from the parts of the territories from which it had to withdraw its forces, but then it remains largely in thousands of soldiers being representing occupational force of Russia in the territory of Georgia. And then the second aspect is very important. On the rest of the territory with which the central authorities are in control and that they are not occupied by Russian forces, we have full transparency. EU observer mission is there, OSCE observers are on the ground, we have excellent cooperation with them on operational level and at all levels. And then, anything that can be of concern to anybody can be easily clarified because it's all transparent and open. But what is happening on the territories with which Russia is in occupation, it's a complete gray zone, no transparency whatsoever. And then we already see the pattern, which is established as a very dangerous pattern. From both regions, South Ossetia and Abkhazia, we see from time to time, as a pattern already, groups of armed people coming out, looting, kidnapping, setting booby traps with which we already have casualties of civilians and policemen, and there is nothing that can prevent that. We
saw last weekend that the motorcade of Saakashvili, the president of Georgia, came under attack. Do we know who actually caused that attack?
Well, it's a Russian checkpoint, right? So that it's an occupational force who stays there, and then Russia.
So you're blaming the Russians for
well, I'm speaking logically here. All checkpoints are controlled by Russian forces, and then if there is anything that is happening outside of these checkpoints, then it means that somebody who is in control of then takes some action. What we've heard in the beginning of this incident, a very unfortunate and grievous one, was that Russia was in denial of everything, and then even South Ossetian militias were in denial of everything. Several days passed, and then somehow it came out that South Ossetians are taking blame on themselves now, saying that it was us who did that. So
it seems yourselves, are you blaming the Russians for that?
Well, again, as I've said, it's a logical assumption. Yes, it's not a blame, I think, it's just an assessment, again, that one can take logically, since there's no monitoring, no mechanism that can clarify what happened. It's logic and assumption of facts that we take as a fact of reality in that sense.
And in August, the blame for the war was quite solidly, from the West point of view, on Russia. But since now, the reality has been that you actually fired on Tskhinvali first, and you started the conflict.
I don't see really that there's any change in terms of the information, how it is coming out from any organizations of the states. We've had a very superficially done, I would say, reporting of some journalists in a way with which there was an improper image created, as if organization, a very serious organization like OSCE, was in a position in which it was hiding some information it had against Georgia, and it was releasing that, and a person, a nobleman, Mr. Greece, had released and leaked that to the press, which is a complete lie. There's no information as of OSCE information that has ever been new in that sense, that would implicate somehow Georgia in starting the war, or something that was hidden at any time from OSCE. All spot reports from Tskhinvali, with which, by the way, this person had never been an eyewitness to, was hidden at no times. And then the situation was of the type that, by the way, this person whom the journalists refer here to had been fired during the war by OSCE because of his misconduct on the ground. And OSCE had been very clear saying that this person is not representing anymore in any nature OSCE as an organization.
Sorry to interrupt you there, the former British captain who was part of the OSCE tells the New York Times that he was in South Ossetia at the time. It was clear to me that the Georgian attack was completely indiscriminate and disproportionate to any, if indeed there had been any, provocation. The attack was clearly, in my mind, an indiscriminate attack on the town as a town.
A clear lie, I say. He was never in South Ossetia at that time. He was in Tbilisi, in the capital. He was, at that time, an active head of a mission. And by the way, he blames his unknown bosses who were not sending information to Vienna and then to member states from the Tskhinvali and then the surrounding areas. And he was the boss at the time. And he was sending all the information to the member states. And then what is the information that is there, upon which he signs at the time himself, is that 3 monitors at that time who were on the 7th in Tskhinvali were in the basement. They had no possibility to move around. And they say that because of the fact that they're in the basement at the time when they write their report from Tskhinvali on the 7th, they can't confirm what is happening to the north, how much shelling of the Georgian villages are ongoing because they're in the basement at that time. They could not, because of their physical incapacity at the time, to see and to confirm again how many Russian tanks were already there in the territory, how many Russian soldiers were invading the territory. And OSCE as an organization clearly said that at all levels, that the capacity that we've had on the ground was very limited. We could not see the picture of the situation at that day. What they could have seen in prior days when they had freedom of movement at the time was that they confirmed in their reports that Georgian villages were intensely shelled. And then we had one report in which even Russian generals signed upon that, saying the Georgian villages were shelled, at that time, indiscriminately and intensely.
But what about your former ambassador to Moscow, who this week testified to Parliament and actually said, well, the Russians may have been planning for the attack, but it was actually us, the Georgians, who attacked first? And that's a loyalist, that's a member of your government saying that.
First of all, it's very unfortunate to hear from him information of this type, because one can have an assumption that a person who had been tasked by the Georgian government to make relationship with Russia better at the time, with which so many initiatives were coming at that time, not from the ambassador, but from the Georgian government, how on bilateral levels we could have improved relationship with Russia. Then, the first day when he was summoned to Tbilisi, I don't know if it's a proper word in English, but then taken away from Moscow, was very strangely assessing the situation and explain how. It was the time when it was the first time when Russia violated the Georgian airspace with his military aircraft, and even did not deny that. Russia openly said that Russia entered Georgian territory with its aircraft, stayed there for 15 minutes, and then went out. So if at any time again it would deem it necessary, Russia would continue to do so. So what we did, we requested our ambassador to come for consultation so that we could have planned how we could have improved situation. And the first thing that he said at the time, already suspicious to me, for example, was that Georgia never managed, in his understanding, over this incident to show to Russia that Georgia has good intentions to improve relations with Russia. And in this very incident, when you have open violation of your airspace, what type of good intention Georgia could have showed in a saying that, I'm glad that you came in and violated my airspace. From that time on, he acted really somehow not really professionally in many ways.
But